Uncle warns family not to open his old garage. What they find inside is extremely shocking. Years later, this uncle firmly prohibited his family from entering his garage, but what they saw there was the worst shock of their lives. Fred's shoulders were heavy with sadness as he used his handkerchief to dab a tear from his eye. He was deeply affected by the passing of Dr. Harold Carr, his beloved uncle. Fred was the one who felt the brunt of Dr. Carr's absence the most, standing amid the distraught relatives in the solemn atmosphere of the Newcastle funeral. To him, he was more than simply an uncle. He was a fatherly figure and a vital component of his life that nobody else really comprehended. Fred's head was filled with recollections as the funeral went on. He recalled how years before, Dr. Carr, who was well known for his eccentricities and need for seclusion, had been a different man. He was lively, gregarious, and full of life back then, creating innumerable special moments for everyone in his vicinity. But when a terrible sickness occurred, everything was altered. He saw the doctor frequently, and his appointments were normal until one day they revealed a devastating diagnosis, a rare brain cancer with a 5 to 10 year prognosis. Dr. Carr turned inside after that, fading into a ghost of the vibrant man he had once been. After his sickness, Fred watched as his uncle changed, becoming more and more eccentric and enforcing strange rules for his home. The rule about never opening the garage was the most enigmatic and unnerving for everyone among these. No one disobeyed Dr. Carr's orders, even if some relatives teased them lightly, and the garage remained a mystery that was off limits. They were aware of their uncle's unbearable suffering, and they didn't want to disobey him by refusing his request. But with the elderly guy gone, they all wondered if they would ever be permitted entry into the garage. Following the mournful farewell ceremonies to Uncle Carr, a serious announcement reverberated throughout the assembled family members. In a sorrowful voice, the family's oldest member stated that Dr. Carr's final request was that the garage be kept closed and unopened by anybody. Fred couldn't help but feel betrayed in the middle of this grieving. As a representation of their relationship and shared secrets, he had hoped that his uncle, who he looked up to as a father figure, would have given him the garage keys. Fred was disappointed, but he also saw the seriousness of Dr. Carr's last request. He couldn't understand why his uncle had departed without giving him his belongings or disclosing what was in the garage. He thought that it was improper for anybody who knew Dr. Carr before to his death to disobey his desires and open the garage, even though he was aware that someone may ultimately obtain access, possibly through legal methods or government action. Over the next few days, sorrow mixed with intrigue about what mysteries waited in the garage. He had no idea how shocking things would turn out for him. A week after Dr. Carr's death, Fred was at his mother's house with other bereaved family members. At that moment, an unexpected guest showed in, bringing the mystery surrounding Dr. Carr's garage to a new level. A black vehicle approached the residence, drawing everyone's attention with its horn. A woman came out wearing a business suit and identified herself as a lawyer. The fact that she was Dr. Carr's personal attorney startled everyone. The family was surprised by her unannounced visit, but they welcomed her inside and wondered why Dr. Carr's lawyer was coming to see them so soon after his death. Fred was even more surprised when Miss Karina, Dr. Carr's attorney, started speaking. The fact that he was unaware that his uncle was a lawyer only made Dr. Carr's restrained demeanor all the more mysterious. Curiosity and expectation filled the room as the family gathered around at Miss Karina's invitation. Fred in particular was curious as to whether her visit was connected to the garage, keeping in mind Dr. Carr's stringent guidelines about it. Miss Karina brought a few documents, her manner hinting at something important. Everyone was filled with surprise and fear as she said the following few words. She disclosed that, hidden within a special envelope, Dr. Carr had left a note intended just for his favorite nephew, Fred. Fred was taken aback by this information and began to wonder how the letter and the garage were related. Fred shook his hands and took Miss Karina's letter, although finding it hard to think his uncle would utilize this opportunity to confront the matter. Tears filled his eyes as he read aloud his uncle's moving remarks. His message expressed his sincere affection for Fred and his sorrow for any miscommunications brought on by the lack of transparency. The family realized how much Dr. Carr loved Fred as they listened to his farewell remarks, and it was a heartbreaking time. Miss Karina said, among tears, that Dr. Carr had left Fred a unique present, which she was to give. As Fred accepted a little package from Miss Karina, the tension in the room increased. Fred opened the box with shaky hands to see an antique, enormous key that didn't look right amid the contemporary items. As everyone searched for the key, silence descended upon the room. This key obviously meant something, but we still didn't know how it related to the restricted garage. Fred wondered why his uncle would leave him with such an odd gift, and his head was filled with questions. The family looked at one other, equally perplexed, not knowing how to interpret this unexpected turn of events. Miss Karina broke the pause abruptly by revealing that Fred was supposed to have access to Dr. Carr's garage and that the key was, in fact, for it. Everyone in the room gasped at the lawyer's surprising remarks. The surprising change of events made the garage, which had been cloaked in mystery for years, even more intriguing. With Fred's key to unlocking the long-kept mysteries, everyone was left wondering what secrets may be hiding beneath. Fred was sleeping less and less after Miss Karina left. He was unable to sleep that night because of his excitement and desire to learn the mysteries of the garage. Fred knew that whatever was waiting for him in the garage had to be very important to his late uncle, so the next day he set off for Newcastle with an unwavering purpose. Fred experienced a peculiar wave of nervousness mixed with excitement as he arrived at the familiar house in Newcastle. He inhaled deeply as he stood in front of the garage that had for so long been a closed mystery, feeling the weight of discovering its mysteries. At last, his hands shaking, he finally got the key in the lock and turned it with a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation. The garage doors creaked open to reveal a scene that was not what Fred had expected. The garage included nicely stacked boxes, an ancient desktop computer, furniture, and a curtain separating the space in half, rather than the expected antiques and treasures from the 1990s. Fred was curious to see what was behind the curtain and within those boxes, instead of assuming they were sentimental mementos. One unexpected discovery was that, despite all these years, the electrical system in the garage was still functional when the lights were turned on. Fred was astounded by this little but important find, evidence of Dr. Carr's careful upkeep even in isolation. An opaque polyethylene curtain separated the garage, and Fred chose to investigate the first half of it before moving on. He came across a box among the others that had a treasure trove, Dr. Carr's diaries. He turned the pages of the worn book. Fred found himself back in his uncle's time. The journal recorded Dr. Carr's ideas, visions, and everyday reflections, providing Fred with an insight into his uncle's inner thoughts. Black and white pictures of a younger Dr. Carr that showed him having fun, making friends, and going on adventures in vintage vehicles were placed next to the journal and spoke a lot about his love of cars. Fred was reminded of the numerous car-related chats he had with his uncle by the photographs. His nephew became an aficionado with extensive knowledge of antique vehicles as a result of Dr. Carr's passion of old cars. The artifacts and pictures within the boxes created a striking portrait of Dr. Carr's colorful, nostalgic, and passionate past. Fred was uncomfortable, even after learning some wonderful things. Years of rigorous solitude in the garage suggested a deeper secret that had yet to come to light. The diaries and artifacts provided a link to his uncle's history, but Fred felt there was more to learn, something that explained the old man's stringent rules and the garage's secret. Fred approached the curtain dividing the garage, expecting to see maybe a safe with valuables, driven by curiosity and a sense of obligation to solve the riddle. He was very astounded by what he found. Beneath the cloth was a sizable item, roughly the size of a compact car, but with a form suggesting it was much more. Fred glanced around the space and saw the extra tires, which didn't look like the ones he was used to seeing. Though obviously not motorcycle tires, they looked similar. Fred approached the covered object, his hands shaking slightly as he reached for the fabric, adding to the suspense and intrigue that permeated the room. Fred quickly drew aside the cloth to expose something that made his knees weak and his jaw drop. A masterpiece that he had never even thought of was in front of him. It was neither a terrifying object as some had suggested, nor was it a safe containing valuables. Rather, it was a car, a 1937 Bugatti Type 57 SC Atalante. Fred was a car fanatic, so you could feel his shock. He was aware of the car's rarity and worth. Not just any automobile, the Bugatti was sought after by collectors and fans all over the world as a representation of elegance and workmanship. It is a highly sought after piece of automotive history, as the French company made just 43 automobiles of its kind in total. Fred examined the Bugatti more closely and saw that, in spite of the covering of dust, it was in surprisingly decent shape. Its classic style and low millage for the era of the vehicle only increased its value and appeal. Fred's hands shook as he found the purchase receipts hidden away, showing that Dr. Carr had paid just £985 for this work of art, an investment that would now be worth millions of dollars. Fred stared in shock at the discovery. He was astounded to learn that his late uncle had been keeping such a valuable jewel in the garage all along. The family was shocked and in amazement when word of Fred's find in Dr. Carr's garage caught on like wildfire. All of a sudden, the years of forbidden entry to the garage made sense. It was a hidden automotive marvel, a treasure trove. Everyone in the family was shocked to learn how much Dr. Carr had been hiding and how important the finding of the Bugatti was. For Fred, the discovery went beyond the Bugatti's market worth. It stood for a bond with his uncle that went beyond financial gain. The realization brought back memories of Dr. Carr's lively personality before his sickness, as well as the happy times they had spent with him in the past. That discovery was both bittersweet and realizing that their uncle's sociable and fun-loving side had been kept secret for a very long time. The family made the decision to restore the Bugatti and list it for sale after giving it some thought. Due to its historical significance and rarity, the automobile brought an incredible 3.5 million euros at auction. None of the family members had predicted that the unexpected windfall would make them instant billionaires, but Fred had more in mind for the sale of the Bugatti than just money. It was evidence of Dr. Carr's affection and kindness even after his death, and it confirmed the relationship he had with his uncle. Fred had chances he never would have dreamed thanks to his unexpected fortune, but more significantly, it instilled in him a fresh feeling of purpose and resolve. Fred's eyes filled with sorrow as he thought back on what had happened. He was sorely missing his uncle and wanted he could have spent this time with him, showing appreciation and thanks for the knowledge gained and the memories held dear. Fred wiped aside his emotions and regarded the finding of the Bugatti as a sign, a motivation to follow in his uncle's passion and expertise and pursue his aspirations and leave his imprint in the automotive industry. It was an homage to Dr. Carr's legacy and an assurance that the passion for automobiles they had shared would go on. How unexpected. In Fred's position, what would you have done with the car? Why, in your opinion, did Dr. Carr hesitate so much to tell his family his secret? Leave a comment below to let us know.